Thank you to all three of you for being here today. This is an exciting time because we are #1 international best-selling authors.
Wow.
And we've come a long way. There's probably about 10 categories, and categories like women in business and men's inspirational stories. Some really cool categories that we were able to get in this. And so that's a lot to be proud of. So Shauna and Kyra, Melanie, can you hear us?
Kyra.
I'm sorry, you told me that too. Can you hear us yet? Nope. Oh well. Tell us about your experience of becoming an author and sharing a vulnerable story like you did. Kyra, would you like to share?
Sure. Well, you know, I've spent most of my life letting go of the past. So going back into the past was quite a journey. And even then I thought it would be simple, but it was a process of editing and editing and editing. And probably it still needs some editing. But what I found was that it allowed me to share a part of my life that many of the people who are in my life or around my life have not known about, which was my whole dance career, which didn't end until I was about 30. So they didn't know about this whole journey through moving to wellness that I went through. And so they only knew me as a therapist and educator, and they didn't know my story.
And how many of us do know another person's story, no matter how long we've known them?
Well, as a therapist, I get to hear a lot of stories gradually over time, although it doesn't all come out at once for sure. I do learn about people and the core issues that were imprinting them.
Very good. And for you, Shauna?
Well, for me, because I was doing interior decorating and trying to present myself a certain way and sort of decorate people's homes and design them and make life designed well, it didn't really come into play until I realized that if I'm not using my whole life and my whole life experiences, then how can I do a good job at anything? And so it was through deciding to write this story, because I didn't actually decide it. It was that we were discussing, Aman was doing a talk with us, and he said, if there's something that's bugging you and you don't want to talk about, you might want to look at that. And I was just, there's no way I'm going to talk about my dad's death. There's no way I'm going to be that vulnerable and tell stories that it's telling on someone who's no longer here. It's telling his story, his and my mom's story type of thing. The fact that his life wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't, nor is mine, but tying it all together. And I think, Natalie, you had asked me how this experience relates to being a designer, and on the last interview, and it actually does, because we get what we have, what we're given, whether it's a home or a business or our kids or our families or a party that we're at, and it's our job to make the best of it. And so with my dad's suicide, it's okay, what's good in it? What can I learn? And so that was something that a lot of truth that I revealed under my own core, and not to judge other people's situation, because it's just a story. It's just the next story.
Right, it is. Yeah, and it's like Aman says in the foreword of the book, you know, we never know what other people's stories are, so be kind always, you know, because we really can't get through life without having something that just shatters you to the core, touches you deep, and it's all for a reason. You know, it helps us to grow as individuals, and being able to stand up and share our stories is powerful. And I think for us, for each one of us, I think it's more of a releasing. As you share and you make it public, it just lets it go. You know, it's just pretty much part of it. So go ahead, Natalie.
add to that and say, you know, when you're promoting yourself as a strong business person, a successful business, you don't often want to let people in on, you know, your vulnerable side, your past, and maybe times that weren't so perfect. So it's brave of you, ladies. So inspiring to read your stories and see where you are today.
Thank you.
So what did you hope to achieve by telling your story, Shauna?
Well, oh, okay.
Either one is fine.
Well, Shauna can go ahead.
What did I hope to achieve? I believe, I mean, as I said, it was sort of writing me. But in the end, it's to show that my vulnerability, my pain around that, and I was so embarrassed and ashamed. I was ashamed of suicide, but it came out that I was ashamed of my dad. And that doesn't serve me. And as it turned out, my kids thought, because of how I treated it, that my dad wasn't a nice guy, because I kept it quiet. I didn't talk about it. I didn't share more of his story. So I damaged his who he was by hiding it and keeping it quiet. So that's not going to happen anymore. And I wasn't doing it for any other reason but my own selfish fears. And yet my children growing up didn't realize their dad was a super nice guy. He had a great smile, he had a great laugh. He was lovely. He just happened to have a different ending to his story. And that shouldn't be his whole story, that what the end looks like.
Well, there's such a stigma around suicide too. And it's hard. I know that it happened in my family with my own father, and it's something that you don't want to talk about. You don't want to share. You know, it's just because it was my first experience with death in the first place, you know, as far as somebody in a family member or somebody close. But to know that and to have to share it is really totally different story. So I really understand you.
Oh, thank you.
How about for you, Kyra?
Well, I hope to inspire people not to give up and also to explore natural means of getting well. And, you know, the program I'm putting online, or doing right now, actually recording things, is about de-stressing, and it's for working women. And women most of my clients are women, and they really are more open to sharing their sensitivities and their issues, and then they have much more of a chance of not just powering through whatever they're dealing with, but of finding the way that really works for them. And I really support natural approaches. But of course, we have to have a balance. We need our medical side and our natural side. But the more we can do that prevents things, the better off we are.
Right.
And so I really hope to communicate some of the basics in the chapter that I shared. And also, I've been writing a novel, which I've put on hold for a whole year, doing this project of getting things online. And I hope that that this chapter, this book, The Game Changer, will also support me in going forward in that. I also realize how much editing I need on any of my writing. Yeah.
All of us feel that way.
We see that so much, and even with my own stuff, you think you're a good writer until you sit down and you really do something like this, and then you're like, wow, you know, read it again, and what I've seen a lot of my authors are doing now is they're reading if it's a book or if it's a chapter, they're reading it aloud, and as they read it aloud, that's when they pick up on, oh, well, I guess I didn't express myself very well, you know, and I do it all the time with even stuff when I'm writing a speech, you know.
I
Or
do that as
maybe,
well. I call my friends who I can read aloud to. And even yesterday I read aloud the chapter. And it was beautiful to see someone react, someone who knew me quite well, who didn't know this story. And to hear and feel that, okay, when I read from my heart, my own words, it's even stronger and it has more of an effect. Even if the person doesn't know you, it gives them a different way of looking at it. But when I'm writing, I like to read it out loud for that very reason.
Beautiful.
One of the other authors, Laura Cornell, say the same thing, that she wanted to go and be with the people pre-reading so she could see their reaction and, you know, have true feedback. And it's very powerful.
mhm.
There's so much to learn.
It is.
Absolutely.
You guys have this wealth of knowledge, and you treat us with such kindness, respect, dignity, and grace. It really does make a difference to be with a publishing company that knows authors are vulnerable, that we're not just authors or what we do. We're people first, and to treat us with kindness and respect. And even though you send us stuff out and we don't find it or see it, or no.
So maybe I'll be contacting you if I ever finish the novel.
That would be awesome. Yeah, we would love that.
All right. Well, talking about feedback, share with us a little about the people that did read your story, what they said, and their reactions.
Well, for me, I had family members who actually read it and didn't know the story. And my dad's family, my own personal family, that their feedback was personal. And one family member said that it really rocked her, like it hurt. And she called me and she said, okay, we have to talk about this because I had an experience. She was older than I was. And I'm so curious to see how, because her experience of course was not as a daughter, it was of a sister-in-law. And so however we write our stories, and when you go through the reviews, it comes from a place of healing, I think, and wholeness, if we do our work well.
Well, we really don't. We don't know what the impact that it makes on others to read it. And, you know, I've always said that you could have 4 people standing on 4 corners and see an accident, and they're all going to say have a different experience with what they saw from where they stood. And that's true even in families that have one shared common experience, but their perception, the way they received it, everything about it is different for each one of us.
That's it. And what people experience is their own. And this is really important. I think one of the people who responded to my chapter said that the line that affected them the most was that first love is self-love. And I have to say that I've been really pushing this person because I wanted her to be well. And now she's pregnant, has a partner, and it's really beautiful to see someone unfold. But all of us have, you know, many experiences that are challenging in our lives. And so feeling the feelings is really important, and going from there. And also to remember that we have this place of beauty and wisdom inside of us. And when we find that place in our own selves, this is the most nourishing that I can think of or be with. I know that once you are, whether the guys I'm teaching right now for stress management or a marketing company are saying they want to get in the zone. And I would call, you know, that's a real male kind of perspective. But whether it's the zone or the sense of peace or the sense of the universe, once we have touched that, that's always available to us. It's always available, no matter what's happening. And this is beauty.
And it's taking time to relate to that and to take that time to find that space. I know so many people, especially in corporate or women on the go, we don't take the time to honor ourselves.
And that's what our work supports is this, in that moment.
Very much. So what would you say as far as how has participating in this impacted you in the sense of business? How has it made a difference in the way you conduct business, in the way you reach out to other people? Has that made any kind of difference in that way?
Well, for my own self, it has made me more aware of the depths of each being, the preciousness of the work that I'm doing. Some of my work is hands-on, and now I'm moving into the online world as well. But it makes it so incredibly precious, each life that comes to me, right. To hold the space for them,
Very much, yeah. Thank you. And how about for you, Shauna?
Well, for me, because I work with cancer patients, families, and caregivers, there's even more of an urgency to make sure we don't slip off an edge. And certainly with suicides, a lot of times suicide is planned and executed within 15 minutes. It happens. It's not, maybe they were thinking about it, but they weren't as serious, and all of a sudden something comes up that's big, and they don't feel that there's someone there for them. So knowing that someone's supported, or that they have someone they could reach out to, or just a practice to say, okay, I'm going to get out in nature, I'm going to ground, I'm going to do some meditation, I'm just going to get in the bath, turn everything off, and be quiet for a moment to get them past those moments. That things can happen quite quickly, and so for cancer patients, families, they can get into deep lows and of course experience deep great highs, which is wonderful. But the scale that they're on is a little different, similar to those who've had other issues, like mental health issues, like my father did. That I want to catch it. I want to be an advocate for them if they can't advocate for themselves. So it's, like I said, there's a sense of urgency now after writing this, realizing, okay, my dad was suffering for a long time. This wasn't an isolated incident.
No.
Things happened and it became worse, but that there wasn't something in place for him. Not necessarily that would have made all of the difference, but at least if you feel like you've done all you can, then you release some of that stress that goes along with being a family member or a work colleague or
anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sense of I could have been able to do something. Not necessarily the case, but at least if you followed through with what you feel that you could have done, then it's easier.
It is.
Easier result.
What I have really, working with all of you and hearing your stories, and often people said, even my family didn't know that this happened 20 years ago, and I kept it a secret, and it made me realize that we all have the commonality that things are going to happen in our lives, and we have to have that support system and know that if we share our issues with someone, that there will be support there, and there are other options, so it doesn't lead to something like suicide. So I think that this book may, someone reading it, see you're all very successful business people helping other people, and now they can look at what point you were at one time and what you've gone through, and that was the past, and you're a whole different person now. So thank you for sharing.
So I just want to say it's really important, even though whatever drama is going on, that we also hold a larger spaciousness with it, because we can get really trapped by what we our fears and so on about a certain situation. But there is, life and death are all part of life, and
Right.
we have to hold it from the largest perspective, and that can ease whatever situation is happening. I just want to share that.
Well, we want to thank both of you for joining us today and for being a part of this journey, and for the lessons that both Natalie and I have learned by, helping everybody come to this point where they're now best-selling authors. But even bigger than that is, for Natalie and I, we read each chapter. We to be a part of it and to understand what goes on in the book and who's writing and what it's all about. It's amazing job, because we get to learn so much from each person's story. And so we want to thank you for being your open and vulnerable and kind and sharing in the way that you have, because this is how we impact the world. This is the stories that change other people's lives too. And it easily, I always say, if one person can be given hope by a story, because we are connected by stories. Storytelling is a part of the fiber of who we are, and yet for the most part we might have through our childhood and into adulthood listen to stories common in our family, or listen to stories that are common to society. But when we stop and talk about our own story, that's when the transformation takes place. So it's been beautiful, and we have loved getting connected with both of you, and feel very honored that we've got to share the journey.
Well, it's been
Thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much.
Just the way you love what you're doing, it makes a difference for us. It really does.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I second that. Yeah.
Well, it's been very fun. It's been amazing. It's been a lot of learning, because over the book we did last time was half of the participants. And this was huge. There's a lot of people in this book, and to get everything to rolling fine. And we've learned through the process to make, because Iman's ready to start the next one in the series, and so we're learning better ways to make sure that the communication part is kept up with. But so it's been a learning process for us too, for sure. Well, I'm going to we'll stop recording and we'll finish our Facebook Live, but thank you to both of you.
Thank you so much. Yes.